Hey guys, welcome back to Storyteller Manila. My name is Kuya Gutch, and we're back with some book sale stories. This one is something that I got from book sale, which is very interesting because it's got pop-up and stuff. And it is Sounds of the Past, Nights. It's got 3D scenes with sounds. Actually, it's got sounds, but because it's old, the sounds are kind of wonky. So I'll just make my own sounds. At first light on a clear morning, a gallant band of knights spur their horses into a charge. Their lord's castle is under attack from an army of invading foot soldiers. The tranquility of the countryside is soon shattered by the clash of steel on steel, the determined cries of fighting men, and the whinny of horses that strain every muscle and sinew in the tangled confusion of combat. Okay, for this next page, I won't actually be reading all of this text, but we've got a lot of information on the battle, and then on the right side, the Castle Courtyard, which will be on the next page. Anyway, I'll just read the first paragraph on both pages. The Age of Knights in Europe lasted for 3 centuries, from about 1250 to 1550. This was a violent time, with short wars between neighboring landowners and longer wars between countries. One conflict between England and France lasted so long that it became known as the 100 Years' War. Now, that's pretty long. In all these wars, the knights were the masters of the battlefield. A knight was a warrior who had proved himself in action and who could afford to buy his own horse, weapons, and armor. All knights took an oath of loyalty, either to the king or to a lord, a powerful landowner. The Castle Courtyard, on the right. The Age of Knights was also the age of castles, which were built to defend an area from attackers, usually constructed on high ground to provide a good view of the surroundings. A castle might be placed near an important road or river, or on the coast to guard against an attack from the sea. Small castles were often single stone towers, while larger ones had many towers, linked by high walls. A castle was both a family home and a military headquarters, controlled by an important knight who was lord of the surrounding area. Okay, next page. So, we're gonna go to the Castle Courtyard, where we can see a lot of people and horses. A bell rings out in jubilation. The battle is won, and the castle is safe. The victorious knights return from the fight to receive an enthusiastic welcome. Even the castle dogs bark happily, infected by the joyous atmosphere. As the portcullis clatters down behind them, the knights begin to relax, casting aside their heavy armor. But in the midst of the celebrations, a somber note remains, as a wounded man is carried into the castle chapel. Come on, let's go. Next page. A feast. Fighting a battle is a marvelous way to work up an appetite, and the knights have been awaiting tonight's feast eagerly. The atmosphere is warm, the food is mouth-watering, and the music is enchanting. Each knight tries to impress the ladies with tales of his valiant exploits. Gradually the hubbub builds, the voices grow louder, and the stories taller, as the minstrels play late into the night. So, another page with a lot of info on a knight's feast, and on the right, the tournament, which is coming up next. That's very exciting. Alright, on the left, the Great Hall was the center of castle life. It was a living room for the lord and his family, a courtroom for the local area, and also a grand dining room for important guests. The lord lived a life of luxury with lots of servants, although he also had many responsibilities. A lord had to follow the code of hospitality and was expected to offer food and shelter to any travelers. Ordinary travelers slept in the courtyard and ate scraps from the kitchen, but the castle cooks had to prepare magnificent feasts for special visitors. The tournament. During times of peace, knights constantly practiced their fighting skills. Sometimes they faced other knights in tournaments, which were competitions where they fought mock battles in front of an audience. The lord of a castle might have held a tournament to celebrate a special occasion, with kings and princes sometimes taking part in the events, as well as ordinary knights. Although the fighting was not real, the knights were often injured. At the end, the contestant who had demonstrated the most knightly qualities was declared the winner. Next page. A fanfare of trumpets cuts through the excited chatter of voices. The spectators stop their gossiping and look up, suddenly alert. The next contest in the tournament is about to begin. Two knights sit astride their towering horses, ready for action. As the trumpets fade away, the signal is given. With a thundering of hooves, the knights race headlong towards each other, aiming their lances. Then, thud! The champion strikes his opponent, and the crowd roar with approval. Yeah! Against an orange sunset, arrows fly and catapults creak and groan. A group of enemy soldiers have been stealing crops and cattle from the lord, so his knights lay siege to the enemy stronghold. The castle's walls are thick and sturdy, resisting a steady barrage from the trebuchets. But the knights have brought a new weapon with them, which even these strong walls will not be able to withstand. A cannon powered by gunpowder. Under siege. Capturing a castle was much more difficult than winning a battle. Even the best and most heavily armored knights could do little when faced with strong stone walls. To take control of a castle, knights and foot soldiers had to surround the walls, putting the building under siege. They stopped any reinforcements or supplies from reaching the castle, then waited for the inhabitants to run out of food and surrender. If the attackers needed a quick victory, they used special equipment called siege engines to batter the castle walls. So examples of siege engines would be scaling ladders, a siege tower, battering rams, and also the ones I mentioned a while ago like the trebuchet, the catapult, and the cannon. At least, I think they're also part of the siege engine categories. I'm actually not sure. Oh, there's a difference between the trebuchet and catapult. I learned about this because of video games. The trebuchet had a heavy counterweight that flung a rock into the air so that it crashed down on the castle roof or walls. The catapult also fired rocks, its power coming from twisted ropes that were wound tight to spring each shot. These weapons were used for hundreds of years. But in the 14th century, a new weapon arrived on the scene, and that's the cannon. Now let's read the one on the right. In the 1400s, weapons that used gunpowder developed quickly, so armor increasingly became unimportant on the battlefield. The lead ball fired by an early type of long gun, known as the matchlock harquebus, could drill a hole straight through plate armor and even through the person wearing it. After the 1500s, although kings and princesses wore suits of armor on ceremonial occasions, the armored knights of old had all but disappeared. All. Castles also underwent huge changes. Their high stone walls were replaced by low earthen ramparts that could better withstand the impact of cannonballs. By about 1550, the age of knights was over. But tales of their valiant deeds have captivated people ever since. Sounds of the past. Knights. 3D scenes with sounds. Now, I really like this story because, well, I'm a fan of knights and anything medieval. I'm a fan of medieval fantasy. In fact, I used to joke, when I was a kid, I used to want to become an astronaut. And then, when I grew older, people would ask me, do you still want to be an astronaut? And I'd say, oh, I've left those childish dreams behind. Now, I want to be a knight. So yeah, I really like this book, and my son loves this book because of all the pop-up stuff. And even if the sound effects are not working for this one, maybe I just need to replace the battery. What works is making your own sound effects, and I think that's what makes him laugh. Plus, there's a lot of information that I actually didn't get to read to you guys because it's super long. I will surely post a link on the description. If you really like this story, it would be best if you buy it and then read it to your children. Or just keep it in your shelves because it's super cool. My other great find from book sale. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed this story. I am going to be back with more stories coming up. Don't forget to subscribe to Storyteller Manila. This has been Kuya Gutch, and I'll see you around.